I want to show you a simple title I designed in Title Pro 7 for part of a visit to Hadrian's Wall in 2019. Yes, I know this is supposed to be a Movie Studio Platinum tutorial, but bear with me. Basically, the title has three text elements that, in turn, scroll from the left across the screen with a stop in the middle before proceeding off the screen on the right. This is the title created using Title Pro 7. I got to thinking that the title is basically so simple that it should be achievable using the titles and text generator supplied as a native plugin in Vegas Movie Studio Platinum and Vegas Pro. This is the title created using the Titles and Text plugin. And these are the two titles playing side by side for comparison. I'll be using Vegas Movie Studio Platinum 17 for this tutorial, but the method is the same for VMS 16 and also versions of Vegas Pro. Welcome to this, my 20-second tutorial. Here we are in Movie Studio Platinum 17. I'll start by deleting the picture-in-picture track. I don't need that. As a background for the title, I'll use a short clip of Milecastle 42, which is part of Hadrian's Wall. You'll see that I've had to expand it to make it 14 seconds long. That's the length of my intended title, plus a second at either end for a fade in and fade out. I'll create those fades now. I'll call this clip the title clip. Now, to accommodate all the elements I need, I'll insert another 3 video tracks above the title clip track. Before making a start on the first text element, I need to create a semi-transparent strip that will act as a background to the text elements. I need to do this because it will make the text stand out from the title clip. I personally like to have a strip that fades to transparent at the top to avoid a sharp edge. To do this, I locate the Color Gradient plugin and pull the linear black to transparent preset down onto the track just above the title clip. To set up the gradient background strip, I need to set up a few parameters in the Media Properties dialog. Unfortunately, the control window is a little on the small side, so it's a bit tricky modifying the parameters. To make this a little easier, I've worked out the parameter values already, so it's just a case of entering them in the right places. Firstly, I make sure that the gradient type is set to linear. It should already be this, but it's best to make sure. I now set the aspect ratio angle to 90 degrees. Now I need to click the arrow right or arrow left button until the crosshair flashes. There we are, it's flashing now. In the control point properties, I'll set the X coordinate to 0.482 and the Y coordinate to 0.246. I'll now click the arrow right button and the control point with the 1 should now flash. It's a little difficult to make out, but if you look closely, the black ring surrounding it flashes blue. I'll set the distance value in the control point properties to 0.503 and set the alpha channel number to 188. If I click the arrow right button again, the control point with the 2 inside will flash. I'll set the distance value in the control point properties to 0.217 and make sure the alpha channel is set to 0. Now these properties will obviously depend upon the vertical position of the 3 text elements in your title. I can now close the Media Properties dialog. I'll just complete this element by applying a 1-second fade at either end. So that's the gradient background set up. The next thing to do is set up the first text element. So I locate the Titles and Text plugin and pull down the default preset onto track 3. Now the Titles and Text default length is 10 seconds. So I need to make this 12 seconds. To do this, I can either pull it out to 12 seconds or I can type in 12 seconds there and then pull the end out till I reach the loop point there. I now need to position this element in the middle. To make it a little easier, I will put the cursor there and that snaps to it. Now this one element will consist of 2 lines of text and both will be of the font Imperator Small Caps. If you haven't got this font, you can download it for free from 1001freefonts.com. I'll put the link in the description. You can of course use a font of your choice if you wish. I'll now highlight the default text string and type in Hadrian's Wall. Because I need 2 lines, I press return and type Castle 42. Now to highlight both lines of text and select Imperator small caps. With both lines still selected, I'll set the font size to 20. Now if I just highlight the line Castle 42, I can change its font size to 16. Finally, I'll highlight both lines and select Center Justify. Now for the font color. In the Title Pro 7 title, the font face is textured with an environment map applied to it. Unfortunately, it's not possible to define a textured font face in titles and text. So to get a similar effect, I'm going to alter the white to a light grey. In the text color parameter box, I'll set the third value to 0.68. This should give a not too dark grey colour. Now to make the font stand out more, I'm going to give it a black outline. I'll open up the outline drop down. Just double click on this to open it out a bit further. Now to change the outline colour by setting all the 4 values to 0. Oops. That should have been the first 3 values. The 4th value is the alpha. That needs to stay at 1. I'll now change the outline width to 5. Unfortunately, it's not possible to have different outline widths for the 2 lines in the element. If this is required, it would be necessary to create 2 generated media events to replace this one, so that each element could have different outline widths. You could at this point give the text a shadow to make it stand out more, but I won't be doing that here. Now for the animation. I'll open up the location drop down and click the animate button. This will open up the keyframe controller at the bottom. Just move that up a little bit. Ensure that the Sync Cursor to Media Timeline icon is highlighted. This ensures that if I move the timeline playhead, the keyframe controller cursor will move accordingly. Again, I've worked out all the parameter values in order to save time. We'll ensure that the anchor point parameter is set to center and that the cursor is at the beginning of the event. Now the values that I'm going to use here are values that suit my particular title. Regard them as a starting point for your title. They'll need tweaking to suit your text lengths. As a little tip, you can make coarse adjustments in the following way. I'll just move that out of the way a little bit. You see that the text is surrounded by a bounding box. you hover your cursor over that bounding box, you get a 4-arrow cursor. You'll left click on that and you can move the bounding box around. As you can see, the values change accordingly. You can use this method to move the text to approximately where you want it to be in the Y direction. This is the Y direction. Once you have it approximately where you need it, you can make fine adjustments with the Y coordinate, which is the right hand one. Once you've made that adjustment, that fine adjustment, make a note of the Y coordinate. Now again, hover over the box. I'll just move that out of the way a little bit more. Click and drag the box off the screen. You need to be just off the left hand edge. You can then fine tune the X coordinate, which is the left hand one, and then change the Y coordinate to the value that you noted down, and that's your starting point. As I've mentioned, in the location coordinates, the left value is the X coordinate and the right value is the Y coordinate. My title requires that the text is placed in the Y direction at 0.28, which is not far off that one. I'll change that. Now, to ensure that the text is fully off the left hand side of the screen, I'm going to enter a value of minus 0.3 as the X coordinate. Just to make things clear, in the Y direction, that's this direction, 1 is at the top of the screen and 0 is at the bottom. In the X direction, 1 is at the right hand side of the screen and 0 is at the left hand side of the screen. Now, the reason I needed to enter minus 0.3 instead of 0 is because the anchor point is the center of the text string, and this is determined by the X coordinate. Because of this, the length of your text string will determine what value you must enter as the X coordinate. As a guide, you should enter a value where the right hand edge of the text is just off the left side of the display. I now need to move the cursor to the 1 second mark and click the plus keyframe icon. This generates a keyframe at that position, and this is the point where the text will start to move. I'll now move the cursor to the 2 second mark and change the left hand coordinate to 0.5, which is the horizontal center of the display. This will generate a keyframe. Now I want the text to remain here for 8 seconds, so I'll right click the location point and select hold. Then move the cursor to the 10 second mark. At this point, I'll click the plus keyframe button to generate another keyframe. The final keyframe moves the text off the screen, so So I move the cursor to the 11-second mark. And change the X coordinate to 1.3. This will generate the final keyframe. The final thing to do with this element is to create the smooth transitions when the text stops and starts. This is achieved by making changes to the Keyframe Fade parameter. To make a smooth transition into the center phase of the text, I have to highlight the X coordinate keyframe point at the start of the move, that is at the 1 second mark. However, as you can see, because the keyframe point is hidden, that can't be done. Instead, I have to highlight the Y coordinate keyframe point I then right-click and select from the context menu Fast Fade. You will see that that has changed the shape of the transition. You will also see that my shake your hand has moved the keyframe to the 22nd frame mark. So I'm just going to have to zoom in on that. And change that to the 1 second mark. And zoom back out. Next, I'll highlight the X coordinate keyframe point at the 10-second mark. Right-click it and select Slow Fade. This will change the shape of the transition line between the 4th and 5th keyframe. I'll now play this through just to see how it looks. Okay, that looks fine. So I'll now close this properties box. Okay, I'm back with you now. You may have noticed that my voice was going, so I've had a little rest and we'll continue now. Now, with this main title text element fully created, I can duplicate it so that the duplicate will have identical properties to the main title. This duplicate is the first subtext element and I'll place it on track 2. I'll open up the properties window. Now this subtext element will have the text Northumberland, so I need to highlight both the lines and type this in. I'll now change the size. Change that to 18. and change the font to Times New Roman. Now, because I duplicated the title, I don't need to change the colour or set the outline. The animation comes next. Now, this text behaves similarly to the main text but remains on the screen for less time before exiting on the right. It also needs to be below the main text. Make sure that the cursor is at the beginning of the event, and I'll now set the X coordinate at -0.3, which it already is, and set the Y coordinate at 0.13. This will bring it lower down on the display. Now, this element enters the screen 2 seconds after the main element enters, so I'll move the existing second keyframe to the 3-second mark. Before I do this though, I need to move the existing third keyframe to the 4-second mark to allow me to move the second keyframe. With the keyframe cursor at the 4-second mark, the subtext will be at the horizontal centre of the display. I'm now able to move the second keyframe to the 3-second mark. Now, this subtext remains in the centre for 2 seconds. So I need to move the existing 4th keyframe to the 6-second mark. Then I move the 5th keyframe to the 7-second mark to move the subtext off the display. Now I need to modify the Y coordinates of each keyframe to bring the text down underneath the main text. One final thing to do is to alter one transition fade. I need to do this so that the 2 subtext elements transition in unison. The transition fade to change is the one at the keyframe X point at the 6-second mark. This needs to be changed to fast fade. This completes the first subtext element. I'll now play that through and see how it plays. Now, there's something wrong there, obviously. Yes, I think I know what happened there. If you change anything there, you must press enter. Okay, we'll try again. It's better. I'll close that one down. Now to make a copy of this subtext and put it on track 1. This animation is similar to that of the first sub-element, but is shifted along the timeline by 3 seconds. I'll open up the properties box. Now this element has the date as text, so I'll highlight Northumberland and type in 20th To achieve the desired animation, I need to pull the 5th keyframe to the 10-second mark. The 4th to the 9-second mark. The 3rd to the 7-second mark, and the 2nd to the 6-second mark. Because this is a duplicate of the first subtext element, all the Y coordinates should be correct. I now need to change the keyframe X point at the 9-second mark back to slow fade. I moved it again. I'll now play that through just to see what it's like. That's fine. I'll close this box down now. As you've seen, there's a lot of configuring to do to create this relatively simple multi-element animated title. But if that's the type of title you want, and you're not fortunate enough to have Title Pro 7, which makes the task so much easier, I'm afraid you have to do that kind of work. There are plenty of animation presets built into titles and text, but they're not fully configurable. So you have to make do with what's there. Or you buckle down and do the work to create your own animations. I'll finish there. If you found this video useful, please think about subscribing to my channel. I also welcome any comments that you may have. Until the next time, bye for now.